and welcome to CX Today. I'm Rhys Fisher, and today I'm going to be speaking with James Scott, Senior Solutions Engineer for North America at Diabolocom. James, thanks for joining me. How are you doing today?
I'm doing well, Reese. Thank you so much for having me. It's always a pleasure to talk with you.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm looking forward to today's chat. We're coming towards the end of the year, so it feels right, perhaps, that we end it by discussing indisputably the biggest CX topic of 2025, which is, of course, AI. So I'm going to start with, I guess, one of the most common issues that we hear about when it comes to AI deployment and implementation. And that's this idea that if AI is so powerful and so smart, why are so many organizations still having a hard time making it work and proving that ROI?
I think that's a fantastic question, and I think that a big reason that people might struggle with making ROI work with AI is for the same reason that a lot of people have trouble with any sort of emergent, groundbreaking technology, which is that um, perhaps the understanding of the what the AI is meant to do or the problems that it's meant to solve, maybe that's not super clear, or maybe the idea is that you're sort of just throwing the technology at a group of issues, maybe a little bit uncritically. But I think that the general principle with any emergent technology, AI included, is that you do want to chase clarity instead of technology. You don't necessarily want to just like buy into hype surrounding some new tech, or assume that that tool will magically fix like any problem that you have. Um, Real ROI requires things like clear goals. It requires measurable outcomes. It requires purpose built solutions that are transparent and audible. AI is specific to the problem, secure in how it behaves, and sustainable because people understand and trust it. At least good AI is. So if you're trying to apply AI in a more general way, you might not realize the same benefits because, again, AI excels when there is a specific, clarified issue that it is being meant to solve and a particular roadmap that it is going to be implemented in to solve that problem. It requires specificity.
Yeah, absolutely. I see where you're coming from there. And within that, you touched on perhaps the importance of security, which again has been a really big topic in the space this year. How do you guarantee data sovereignty and regulatory alignment, especially with GDPR and the EU AI Act coming into effect?
So with Diabolocom, we own the entire data pipeline. So that's from acquisition to annotation to storage. We own that entire pipeline, which gives us a degree of sovereignty and legal control over that data, what it's used for, where it goes, so on and so forth, that a lot of companies just can't claim to have. Our pipelines enforce data minimization, they enforce access control, and they enforce compliance checks, right? So because we already have experience building for regulated European markets, our systems are already designed to comply with GDPR and the AI Act by default. And then by extension of that, other places in the world, the strict compliance. I bumped my microphone there, that's my bad. The strict compliance that we follow to GDPR extends into our strict compliance for more, global or other market specific sort of frameworks that they use for data security. All of that is to say, because we are secure and because our models are smaller and they're domain specific, which essentially means that instead of having a large language model that's meant to be a jack of all trades and a master of very few, ours are meant for a specific set of applications, which results in less data being required to train that model, and less, vulnerability, shall we say, in the data structure. We avoid the blind data flows that are common in sort of, we call them black box LLMs, where you essentially you implement it, you don't really know what that data is doing, you don't know when you query it what's happening behind the scenes. That's what we mean when we say black box LLMs. But ours, avoid the blind data flows that are common in LLMs like that. Everything's logged, everything's governed, everything's audible. And because, as previously mentioned, we own the entire data pipeline, we also build and maintain an end-to-end system, right? So we do all of our storage and all of our AI processing internally on our own servers instead of on servers perhaps owned by larger providers. Because of this, we can ensure that our systems are fair, equitable, and accountable in a way that a lot of systems just are not at the moment.
Right, I see. That's quite a thorough kind of breakdown of your compliance features there. I was just wondering, are there any other elements of that kind of secure philosophy that you guys use over at Diabolocom?
Absolutely. Yeah. So AI, right, and security, it's not just a matter of how you're storing the data. It's also a matter of whether when you look at the history of that model, you can actually see and audit how that model made the decisions it made, how it scored a certain interaction, how it decided to mark an intent, or so on and so forth. There's a lot of various examples of how AI is being applied, but generally, you want the model to be auditable. Not just secure in how it stores and accesses data, but also you might have boards, regulators, or customers that are expecting your businesses to prove why, not just that an AI system took an action or made a decision, but also to prove why it did. This is where our work with academic partners and open source research comes in, right? Because when we work with academia and open source research, this transparency is just reinforced. We make decision paths visible rather than mysterious when it comes to how our AI is performing the decisions that it's making. Every output can be inspected, justified, and defended. Security isn't just about that data. Again, just to return to that, it's about the decisions that shape the customer experience.
Yeah, I also think that's really interesting from you guys, your kind of your approach to academia. It's something we don't hear a lot from other vendors in the field, but I can absolutely see the benefits of that. But I wanted to just go back to something that you touched on earlier. You kind of outlined what we mean when we talk about black boxes and mentioned that a lot of AI systems kind of still operate like those black boxes. How do you ensure that your models kind of remain more transparent and auditable end to end?
That's a good question, right? And a lot of that really comes down to how we communicate, not just, we like to think of it as a huge tech problem like transparency, auditability, but it's not really just about the tech, it's about the communication of that tech. It's about how companies choose to communicate decisions that they make as far as developing that product to end users or to a general public. So in addition to, designing our own models and our own data sets and our own evaluation tools to be transparent, we also publish our research, right? We publish our research publicly. We produce open source encoders like Eurobert. That's something that we use for encoding within our models. And again, publicly, we release benchmark data sets, right? So we're showing how our model's performing relative to some of the common metrics that people judge models by. And all of these decisions are ultimately to make our methods visible and accountable to the industry. Internally, every AI decision that we make is logged and it's auditable. So everything from like a classification to a routing choice or a summary or a transcription, all of these things which are driven by AI, we ultimately have sort of a digital paper trail internally so we can, figure out and determine what happened here, what happened there. And that's made even easier by the fact that we use smaller, more specialized models as opposed to large models. So again, right, it's good to have a large model because a large model can do a lot of things. But when you start getting into that, like, the large language model space, I guess you could say maybe the third party pillars of a great deal of AI tech, you start getting into this dangerous area where the model is so large that it becomes unwieldy and unruly, and it might be able to do many things okay, but it really can't do specific things as well as you would want to pin your company's trust on it. So our models are smaller and more specialized. They're not giant monolithic systems. As a result, right, that allows for not just the decisions that our models make to be more reliable and consistent, but it also means that our behavior is more observable and more deterministic. Our R&D team also focuses a lot on separating their research time from the product work. So all that is to say, it's not just a matter of creating something and bringing it to market. It's a matter of being premeditated. It's a matter of ensuring that what we're actually developing is going to do what it needs to do and that it's going to do it as well as it can possibly do it with as minimal dependencies on anything as possible. That's our goal.
Yeah, and I think that's a great goal when it comes to AI. And just speaking to you, I think it really comes through quite clearly how considered I think Diabolocom is with its use of AI. But obviously that isn't necessarily the case for all vendors. What would you say perhaps to leaders who are concerned about kind of the unpredictability of AI, and how do your systems in particular mitigate some of that risk?
Absolutely. Before I answer that, I want to say your point about us being more deliberate and cautious and calculated. I think that just want to point out, I think that's like a natural extension of the European roots of the company. Obviously, we are expanding into other markets, and I think that we are seeing a great deal of conversations and success in these other markets, owing particularly to the fact that we don't just scale up fast at the expense of data security and all of these other metrics we're talking about. That's one of the things we pride ourselves in. So I appreciate you saying that. But your initial question, I want to return to, right? Leaders concerned about the unpredictability of certain AI. There's a lot of ways that AI uncertainty and unpredictability tends to manifest. The big one that we hear about is hallucination, which is this. It's a funny word. It's very evocative, but ultimately, at the end of the day, all it means is that you've told the AI to give an answer no matter what. It has combed through its training data and it's determined that it doesn't have an appropriate answer, but it's going to give an answer anyway. That's essentially what hallucination is. It can manifest in funny ways, but all it is an AI giving an answer it's not confident in. That happens again when your models are too general or too ungrounded. When it's meant to do many things okay instead of a specific task very very well. That's again why we avoid the use of the large language models, is because our smaller models are designed for CX tasks, which drastically reduces the unpredictability of those models. The models that we develop are supported by governance frameworks, continuous evaluation cycles, and testing environments that benchmark the accuracy against real conversations and data sets that we build ourselves. Because our architecture relies on chains of small, focused virtual agents instead of one oversized model, our behavior is deterministic and controllable. And when I say deterministic, what I mean is that one query is always going to return one result contingent on the context, right? You're not ever introducing unpredictability or chaos in a way that some generative models might. But we don't want that chaos in customer service. What we want is for someone's issue to be addressed a particular way, for us to request certain information, and for that process to be, as I said earlier, reliably recalled and very transparent and auditable. So with that, customers move from mystery AI, I was talking about big black box LLMs, to predictable systems, deterministic systems, because with those deterministic systems, you can see exactly why something happened. Secure AI behaves predictably and does not improvise.
Yeah, I think that's really important there, James. I think you do a really nice job of kind of breaking down some of those what seem, I think, on the surface quite complex ideals around AI. Particularly, you think about hallucinations. It sounds like this very dramatic thing, but actually, as you explained it, it's quite a simple niche area within the technology that I think people get a little bit panicky about sometimes. Um, so yeah, I think that's, like I said, I think that's very helpful for our audience.
It does always remind me of a little bit of like an oasis, we the idea of like, oh, an AI model on a desert island is hallucinating, but you're right.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. That's the same thing I was thinking. Um, but just moving on, I think it is almost kind of circling back a little bit to something we touched on at the start. This idea of almost measurable AI. How do you guys, I suppose, at a most fundamental level, how do you help CX leaders measure AI performance instead of in some scenarios where I think customers feel that they're expected to just sort of blindly trust that the technology is going to help them?
Totally. I think that, it's not just a matter of giving visibility at certain levels. The admins need certain visibility, business leaders need visibility, and that visibility needs to be tailored to the unique business responsibilities of each role. And we provide that visibility at every level. Leaders in the space get dashboards that show accuracy, error types, and false positives or negatives. Human in the loop workflows where somebody comes in and validates the responses. They audit, so to speak, to do a little bit of a callback, right? They audit the decisions made by the AI. They validate and they refine the outputs. Our benchmarking systems that we judge our evaluations and our interactions on are built for telephony and contact center environments and enable precise performance testing before we actually deploy them. So again, it's just visibility at the leadership level, at the admin level, so they can see what's going on and make sure that their models and their AI tools are behaving accordingly. We've even provided studies showing the need of having, like, we were talking earlier about domain-specific data sets as opposed to general data sets, generic ones found that could mislead decisions on the use of those models, right? So having domain-specific data sets really, hones in on the behavior of a particular model in a particular use case in a particular context, right? So it's a matter of being holistic when possible and when appropriate, but at the end of the day, judging models by their own metrics and their own use cases. That's what I mean when I say domain specific. You don't want to judge one model based on something that it's not meant to do or a problem that it's not meant to solve, to go back to our first thing, right? The transparent, open, and documented approach that we follow, it helps the compliance team. So it's not just leadership. It's really not just like leaders who need to know the business decisions. It's also teams that are responsible for understanding whether a tool is being compliant with certain frameworks or not. So it's compliance teams, it's QA teams. To all of these kinds of user types, AI becomes measurable. It's not magic. You shouldn't believe in AI. You should measure it. You should monitor it. You should make sure with results and actionable insights that it is doing what you need it to do.
Yeah, I like what you kind of alluded to there, that need for flexibility sometimes. I know you were speaking about a specific area, but I think that's always a good approach to have when it comes to AI across the board. I think too many times organizations sometimes see it as quite a rigid system, but it can be a lot more flexible, and you can kind of pick and choose where the best place to implement it, where is it going to make the most, where's it going to give your company specifically the most benefits, I suppose.
Absolutely.
Great. So just the final question I have here, and again, we're going to kind of circle back to the security element that we've focused on a lot in this chat. Why is your secure approach at Diabolocom? How, I guess, is it becoming a competitive advantage, perhaps for scaling companies specifically?
Yeah, the tech part of me, the solutions engineer in me wants to give that answer in technical language and talk about product and talk about, internal sort of technological benchmarks and benefits, but I understand that a lot of, C-suite executives and a lot of people who are responsible for scaling, they might be concerned with the product, but they're also really concerned with financials as well. Scaling companies can't afford risk, right? They can't afford long approval cycles. They can't afford the kind of surprises that come from black box models. So when you have a secure, AI tool that's built on secure models, what that ends up doing is it accelerates legal, compliance, CIO, CISO approval because everything is explainable and auditable in a way that a black box model just isn't, right? Our approach shortens that deployment timeline and delivers the ROI faster because it's easier to make the decisions that need to be made from a business perspective. It's easier to make them more quickly. That on top of our academic partnerships and open source contributions and our documented research, right? We all try and give any scaling company confidence in our ability, right? Everything that we do is made to ensure that we are engaging the leading conversations. We're ensuring our approach remains ahead of the curve in a way that, we just don't want to be lagging behind, but we also want to dot all of our I's and cross all of our T's. Customers that move from those large opaque models, the black box ones, to ours saw immediate clarity. They saw immediate control that they didn't see before, right? Not only are they able to audit the decisions made, but they're also able to there's when you have a model that's built for a specific thing, there are things that the model can return to you to get to the technical. The model can return things that a large black box model can't. So it's not just reliability, it's flexibility, it's configurability within the constraints of what that model is aimed to solve. All of these things that we're doing, right? Frost and Sullivan recognized us for this. They named us the European leader of AI innovation. And the reason we do this is because we want to bring practical, transparent, sovereign AI to CX teams that need results now. That's our goal.
Perfect. I think that's probably a great place to stop things. Thanks, James. I think it's been a really, really great chat. I think, like we kind of touched on throughout the conversation, this subject can be very technical. It can be complicated, but I think you've managed to kind of unpack those elements in a really relatable and understandable manner. So I think, yeah, I think it's going to be really beneficial to our audience. So thank you.
Thank you. It can't get, it has to stay somewhat
Absolutely.
technical because I need
I'd
that
also
job.
like
You
to
know what I mean?
just quickly thank our viewers for tuning in. If you enjoyed this, please do like and subscribe to the channel and keep an eye out on cxtoday.com for more stories like this. Until next time, thanks for watching.